What's up, everybody? It's Trey Smith, co-owner of Recaptured Values, alongside my talented wife,
Bailey Smith.
And hey, guys, we've been working for you guys. I've been kind of behind the scenes, which is why you haven't been seeing me. But trust me, I've been working for you guys.
We're the magic.
I'm the magic man. I've been doing all the social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. You know what I mean? I've been working for you guys. But yes, a lot of big things are coming, and we are happy that you are watching these videos. We hope these videos help you guys. And
we're going to be putting out new videos every Tuesday, and we're going to call it Teach It Tuesday. So be prepared to learn. So whether you're a mama, a grandma, and any sort of family member making stuff for your little nieces and nephews, whatever. Right. Shop owners, we welcome you to watch our videos and learn. We're just going to be going through our favorite patterns and showing you how we use them in our own shop, and we hope you can benefit from them.
Well, enough of the introduction. We hope you enjoy this video. See y'all on the other side.
Hey everybody, Bailey Smith here from Recaptured Values, and today is Teach It Tuesday, and we are going to be going over a very cute, simple peplum top. This peplum top is from Simple Life Pattern Company, and it is called the Isla or Isla. I'm not really sure on the pronunciation of that, but it's ISLA if you want to look it up. The Infinity Tunic and Dress. So this pattern in particular can either be cut at a peplum length, it can be cut at a longer peplum, like tunic type length, and a dress length. Super cute, lots of options. You can even curve the front up. We're just going to be doing a straight line bodice, circle skirt, fully lined tank. We're going to be going over things like the burrito method to make sure that you get these, the sleeves and everything and the neckline all enclosed so that there's no seams showing, except for the waistline seam, of course, on the inside of the garment. Okay, so let's get started. I do this a little differently, so please hear me. When you're watching this video, please hear me, because I'm going to do things a little bit differently than this actual pattern instructions call for. So if you're watching this video, understand that the things I'm about to do and the pattern pieces I'm about to use, I'm going to use them a little bit differently than the pattern instructions actually call for. So, preface. There you go. You have your disclaimer. This is the front bodice piece. I just use one. There's a front and a back. I used to use both, but I have noticed that the scoop from the front, I like it in the back as well. It's perfect. The actual back bodice typically is higher than the front. I just use the front for both. So I'll cut 4 of these out on the fold. This is the fold here. But I also like to cut my bodice on the straight length here. And like I said, there is an option for a curved length. I don't like that. I feel like it makes bellies look bigger. I know it's a child's pattern, but I still tend to steer away from that. So I like to cut straight across. I feel like it's a very simple, elegant A-line appearance. So that's that. We're gonna cut 4 of those on the fold, which I've already done. That's 4 pieces right there. And so of course your stretch is going to be going across your garment, because that's where it's going around your body. You want to make sure that it hugs the body. Okay, so moving on to the skirt. Like I said, we're doing the tank version, so we don't need sleeves for this one. They do come with sleeves. They have different lengths for sleeves, but for this purpose, we're just doing the tank. So you're not going to need sleeves. You see four front bodices. You can do you can do 2 fronts and 2 backs if you'd rather do that. It's the same concept. It's just I like the scoop in it, and then you don't have to print out so many pieces of the pattern. So you just print out the front bodice and the skirt for a tank. So for the skirt, if you've watched our bummy skirt add-on video, I like to cut a circle skirt on the double fold. I like to do this because it eliminates the seams, the 2 seams that would go on the side if you do these as 2, I guess that would be half skirts. You put 2 half skirts together to make a full skirt in the way the pattern calls for. And so I just like to go ahead and cut the skirt on a double fold. But to do that, you're gonna have to do a little bit of maneuvering. So somebody had asked previously, because I guess they had a little bit of trouble understanding how I cut on a double fold. So I'm gonna include that in this video. So here is fabric. Really, for this, it's not gonna matter the grain line and the stretch, because it's going around the body, and you're going to be cutting on a double fold, so it's going to get a little crazy with how the stretch is going to go. So as long as your fabric has stretch, it's a knit fabric, this is going to work just fine. Okay, so you're going to fold it like this, And for this purpose, I've already cut the fabric to fit what I would, the skirt that I need. But really, to maintain, the best utilization of your fabric, so you're not getting too many scraps here, you take your skirt and you put it, well, I'll go ahead and keep the pattern here. So this would be the original fold, and we're gonna put it here. Before I move on, I almost forgot. The pattern piece that I use, the skirt, there are multiple lengths, like I said earlier. I like to cut my straight bodice, and I like to cut the drop waist top length for the skirt. I feel like it gives the right amount of length for the bodice hit and the right amount of length for the peplum to not be so short or not so long. It's a happy medium, and it's just what my preference is for what we sell in our shop. So, all right, so top is going to be the drop waist cut line. That's what I use. So when you're folding your fabric over to cut on a double fold, you want to only pretty much make it as close to this as possible. You fold the fabric over to meet this. So like if this is on the fold here, this line right here is on this fold, it'll be just folded. You want to make sure that you only fold up enough to fit your pattern piece on. Because if you're going and you're folding your entire yard of fabric in half and doing the middle, you're going to have a circle in the middle of a whole yard of fabric, and you've just wasted a whole bunch of fabric. Not that you can't use that for scraps, but that would be very heartbreaking to me if I did that. So start in a corner of your fabric. Okay, start in a corner, only fold enough what you need at the top so your pattern piece fits. Okay, and then what I like to do is I like to go ahead and kind of just move this pattern piece like this, right? And so then I know, okay, I need this much, because if I fold this over, this needs to fit. So that's what I do. I go ahead and just kind of fold my pattern piece over and give a little bit of room, and I go ahead and make a straight cut. And I cut that out of my fabric, and I move the big piece of fabric over so there's no issues. If I cut in a curve and I accidentally scoot one type of way, I'm not cutting my big main fabric piece. So I've already got this piece cut out of a main fabric piece. This was from a yard of fabric. So that's just what I do. And so now I'm actually going to fold it over. You're just going to make sure that your folded edge here is lined up so that it's straight. Make sure all the wrinkles are out. If there are any wrinkles, just go in and smooth them out gently with your hand. All right, we're wrinkle free here. Okay, so then you're going to put your pattern piece just like this. And I'm going to use weights. So of course you're going to want this piece on a fold, which is the fold we did this way. And you're going to want this piece on a fold, which is the fold we did this way. Okay, which is the original fold. So I'm going to go ahead and use these. And if you haven't watched any other videos, these are pattern weights. They're DIY pattern weights. You can make your own. We went to Home Depot and bought some washers, like the biggest washers, flat washers, and we just stacked them into 2s and 3s. I think this is 4. You can kind of see right there. The tape's kind of washing off, but they're just, metal washers. And so we stacked them up and then put tape around them. You can probably figure out a different cute way to do it, but some people put clay and then bake the clay, let the clay dry. That's a super cute idea too. Okay, so let me find my rotary cutter. Again, number one question we get asked is, what is the rotary cutter? Because it seems like we're not using a lot of pressure. I promise you it's the blade. It's really not the cutter, although we've never had a problem with this cutter. But I do believe that this titanium Westcott cutter or rotary cutter is discontinued. So, sorry about that. We are looking for a better replacement so that we can, give you guys a good recommendation on a rotary cutter. So far, Alpha or I still haven't looked this up from the last video, you guys. But so far, that seems to be the only comparable brand. The Friskers, it doesn't last long. The first few cuts, it's great, but the actual longevity of the cutter, not the blade, because the blades are going to dull regardless, especially if you're not taking care of your cut mat. But the actual cutter of this is going to be great. Our blades we get from Amazon. We can link that down below. They come in like a 10-pack, I believe, and we just change it, every time we cut through like 30 to 40 garments, we'll change our blade. It's a little crazy, but it's worth it because you get really good results. And you don't have to get fed up with your cutter. Okay, so moving on to our skirt. This one's going to be cut here. You're going to cut this curve. You're not going to cut on your folds. That's what a double fold means, okay? So we're just going to cut this one right here just like normal. I hold my rotary cutter like this, just because it's the most comfortable hold for me. I'm not putting much pressure on this at all. And I probably need to change my blade, to be honest. Since I was in here talking about my blade, because clearly it's not cutting. I did cut a lot of stuff out yesterday for our shop, so that's probably what it is. I need to take my own advice. Okay, so no problem. Just go in and cut the pieces. This little piece got a little weird here. Okay, got that done. Okay, so that's fine. This is a scrap piece now. You'll just throw that away. Okay, so now this part. Since we are doing something different than the actual pattern calls for, we are going to cut this middle circle a little bit different than the actual pattern calls for. So I like to go ahead and come up about a 1/2 inch and then just cut a little bit above the actual cut line that's in here. You can see it. I'm not sure if you can. Yeah. So that's the actual line. And so I'm just going to come up about a 1/2 inch above that because we're eliminating the side seams allowance. So you need to make sure that the middle, you're adding that back to the pattern piece. So that's why we're doing that. So a 1/2 inch, I'm just going to go around in a circle. All right, see, again, my blade needs to be recut. Okay, so then there's your circle that you just cut out. It's not perfect, doesn't really matter, as long as your curve is a curve. All right, so as you can see, that is about how much I left on this pattern piece. I do that for every size. If I'm doing a double fold instead of the actual 2 half circles, side seams, like the pattern calls for, I'm always leaving about a 1/2 inch above the actual pattern cut line on this circle part, just because we're eliminating the side seam allowances, and so you have to add that back in, or it's going to be, the skirt's going to be too big for your bodice, and it'll look really stretched out in the waist. So to avoid that, that's how you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and quarter off this while it's folded, because it's super easy. You know what your points are. So I know that this is the double fold edge here. So we got this fold right here and here. I'm going to snip right here and right here, and then I'm going to snip right here, and I'm going to open it up and show you that now we have a snip, 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 and a snip. So this is already quartered and ready to go. You don't have to hem this if you don't want to. This fabric doesn't fray. If you want to hem it, you can. If you have a cover stitch, do that. If you don't, you can serge it and then top stitch it up. You can even serge it and hem it with a serger if you want to. There are many videos on how to do that. I personally don't do that. This fabric doesn't fray, like I said. So as long as you don't have any seams to worry about, you can just leave it. Okay, so we got our skirt done. So now we're gonna get our bodice ready to construct. So you're gonna put, like I said, we're using all fronts. These are 4 front pieces. So if you're using a floral pattern like me, I like to lay my pieces out, because pattern placement, the placement of the actual floral pieces, especially with these being bigger pieces, is gonna be kind of important. Because some people really are like, wow, if you have 2 big flowers, you know, on your lady parts, even though they're girls, it's still, or you pick, basically, if you don't really care about that being an issue, you pick the piece to go on the front, you know, that showcases the floral the best. And so to be honest, I personally like this one. I think this one's my favorite as far as that goes. I think that's what I'm gonna choose to be the front. It really doesn't matter, just remember that piece for later. So I'm putting my pieces right sides together, matching up the shoulder seams, matching up the side seams, though we're not gonna sew those yet. So we're just gonna do the shoulder seams at this point. And again, I use a serger just because it's easier. If you have a sewing machine and that's all you have, you can absolutely use a zigzag stitch here. We use a 3.5, I think, by 5 here. So you can absolutely do that if you want to. I'm just gonna serge it and I'll be right back. All right, so I have got these serged here. As you can see, I serged the shoulder seams here, just like this. So shoulder seam, shoulder seam. I use a 1/4 allowance, but I believe it actually says it on here somewhere. It does not. I use a 1/4 or a 1/4. I always say 1/4. I think it's actually just a quarter inch seam allowance. So 1/4. All right, so here we go. I've done that one and I've done this one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open these up. Open them up. And open them up. So I think I decided that I like this one, the floral best, which again, it really doesn't matter at this point yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and place this piece down just like this. Okay, so it's gonna be important if you follow the instructions and you have a higher back than the front, you're gonna wanna make sure that you're lining your backs up and your fronts up, because this is gonna be a little bit different right here. If not, mine's just a circle because I use 2 fronts instead of a back and a front. So now we're gonna sew in this. We're gonna serge around this circle here. So you match up your shoulder seams here, and you can put a pin if you want. I typically don't, just because it's easier to, I mean, got pretty good at it. But so you're gonna serge around the circle here. So I'm gonna take you over here and show you guys how I do that. All right, so as you can see, I'm using the Brother 1034D serger. I've got just plain polyester thread. I use MaxiLock from waywalk.com. We'll link that down below as well. I got my settings on 3.5, 3.5, 4.5, 4.5, and as you can see down here, those are my settings. There. Okay, so I pretty much have learned to love those settings. I haven't changed it since I've changed it to those settings. I haven't changed it since. It works for pretty much all fabrics so far that I've sewn, at least personally. But every machine is a little different. Even if it's the same exact machine, they're all a little different with how they, treat fabric. So make sure that you're, practicing with a piece of fabric before you just decide to go headfirst into garments. So, like I said, we're needing to serge the circle here. And again, if you don't have a serger, you can use a sewing machine. Zigzag stitch is perfectly fine. You'll just replace everything that I'm doing with a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. That's all. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this back here. So this is what I do. I put this in like this, and then I fold this part back. So I'm gonna start right here. I'm gonna put this under the knife, and remember I said I'm matching my shoulder seams up, which I've already done. And so now I'm gonna grab this shoulder seam and kind of just pull it over here. You're not pulling this fabric, you're just kind of making it straight. Don't pull your neckline, just making it straight. Okay. Again, I'm using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so, which is basically right at the knife. I'm barely cutting anything off. I'm just making sure my pieces are staying lined up. Not stretching it, just making sure that it's straight. Because when I get done with this, it'll curve out. And I just go right back over where I started, and then I kind of just unravel this just a little bit, and I will pull gently, because you can pull them and break them. And I pull all my strings here tight. I tried using the little nitpicker, and basically you just pull this part here and see if your pieces come unpopped from the knot that you just tied, and if they don't, you're good. Pull them and snip them. So that's how that looks. All right, so now we have serged our neckline there. So that's how the neckline's gonna look for now on the inside. So what you're gonna do is lay it flat. I'm gonna turn this way on me so you can see. All right, let me scoot back so you can see, hopefully. Okay, I like to lay it flat like we just sewed, okay? Lay it flat. And so if you watched our leotard video, this is a very similar step here, except for we're not adding sleeves to this peplum. This is gonna be a fully tanked. So if you wanna do a lined leotard, it's just like this. But of course it's gonna have a body and not just be a bodice. Okay, so we pushed those pieces in. So now it looks like this. That's how the shirt would actually look, right? If it was sewn, that's how the shirt would look. Okay, so what you're gonna do, now you're gonna lay it flat. And, okay. I like to hold it like this, right? Okay, so you're gonna open, you guys can see, this is a side piece. So I grabbed one side and I kind of just set it down on itself like this. And I'm gonna open this side up like this. So this is one of the shoulder seams here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bunch all this stuff up underneath here into this shoulder seam here. Okay, so if you can see, I put all of that fabric into that shoulder seam there and kind of just squished it in there out of the way so that when I serge this, it's not going to get caught under the knife and into the seam. Okay, so you can pin here if you choose to. Just make sure your shoulder seams are matching up. Go over here and grab your side seam here. As you can see, I did that, and then you're doing the exact same thing on the other side. And again, like I said, you can pin if you need to. There. Okay, so as you can see, now you're going to serge from this point to this point here where my fingers are. And so you're just going to make sure that this is squished down enough so that you're not catching anything in the seams. Okay, so I'm just going to go here with this arm piece, same seam allowance that I always use. Make sure everything is bunched in here, away from the knife so that's not getting caught in the seam. Make sure everything's still bunched over. All right. Okay. Cut your little tails because those are going to be sewn up later. Okay, so then this is essentially what that looks like. That's like a half of it. So what you'll do, you'll open this little piece here and you will go in and you will grab the fabric and it will pull it through that shoulder that you just created, that one side. So we just did one side of our tank. And so what you'll do is you'll wiggle it around a little bit just to make sure that that seam allowance, the serge seam, is where it's supposed to be. And so you will see that is now fully lined, fully finished, both sides, with the exception of the straight part here, which we will finish in a second. But the actual arm sky, I think that's how you say it. I may be mispronouncing this stuff, but I'm pretty sure it's called arm sky. That's one side. So now we need to do the other side. So we'll do the exact same thing, but this time the piece that's going down in my lap and kind of squishing up is the piece we just did. So you'll have one piece left and you'll open that side up, the only side that should open now. And then you'll grab it again, grab the piece that you bunched up and make sure that you're putting it inside the seam here, matching your shoulder seams up. Again, matching your side seam up here. And then I grab this. Okie dokie. Give me just a second. Come on, fabric, work with me. Okay. There we go. All right, so there's the next one, and do the exact same thing again. Make sure all your stuff's bunched in there so it's not getting caught in the seam, so when you pull, it's gonna come out and not be stuck in a seam. If that does happen, you can just, get a seam ripper and, start over. So again, cut your tails because they'll be those edges. Don't cut them too short so that they come unraveled, but you can cut them short enough to where there's still some out. So that's the next one. Again, we'll do the exact same thing we did. And so now the shoulders should be finished. The arm scotch should be finished. Pull it out. Take care not to stretch it too much because it may pull and look really weird. But okay, so again, with the same shoulder or the other shoulder we just did, make sure you're wiggling your fabric out just to make sure that you don't have any leftover fabric in there. Okay, so there we go. Now we have a lined neck and a lined arm. Okay, so how do we do this part here that we didn't serge? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold it like this, and then I'm gonna put this piece like this. So I opened up this bodice. I just opened it up. That part that hasn't been serged yet, opened it up. I'm gonna do the same thing with this one, so I'm kind of just gonna fold that down like accordion style. Okay, and And then I'm gonna open this one up too, on top of it. Right sides together. All right. So my shoulder seams and arm skives are in there. And these are the last little side pieces that we need to serge. Again, if you don't have a sewing machine or a serger, you can use a sewing machine and do a zigzag stitch right here. And so we're just gonna do a serger stitch. And so you're gonna match these 2 points up here, which is the ends of your arm skive points. And you're just gonna make it work. So make sure that when you put it in under your knife, exact same seam allowance, make sure that your shoulders in here are not under the knife. Make sure they're out of the way. Just make sure that your edges are lining up. Don't stretch your fabric. All right, so that's one side, and we're gonna do the other side here. Go over here to the other side. Give it a good little wiggle to get the arms out of the way. The shoulder seams, start again. Make sure this middle seam is lined up, which it is. All right, so now you will flip that in, pull your arms out and give it a good hit, and the top bodice is done, and now you'll have to do is add a skirt. That's all you have to do now. And so that actually worked out perfectly because that's the side I liked to be the front. So let me go grab the skirt real fast. But now you can see these are fully lined. On the inside is fully lined. There's no seam in there. The only seam that's going to show on the inside now is the inside seam of adding the circle skirt. So let me go grab the skirt real fast. Alright, so we've already quartered the skirt at the very beginning, so we just need to quarter the bodice. And so what I like to do is I like to go ahead and make sure that my seams right here are lining up, just going the same way. It just makes it a nice seam here. And I like to do the exact same thing with the other side, just to make sure that they're laying the same way so that they're not super bulky underneath the armpit. And then I match them together. Of course, make sure my raw edges are together. And then of course that'll be 1 point here. And then that's the middle, and I'm gonna use those as 2 points. And then that's gonna be the other point. So I have 4 points to match up with my skirt points that we made earlier. So I'm gonna snip there. I'm gonna snip there. Make sure you're snipping the main and lining so that you can see it. All right, so this is when it's important to make sure that you remember. I like to also, I didn't say it at the beginning, but you can use whatever type of fabric you want as a lining. I typically just use the same fabric. You could use a corresponding, like ivory, you could use mauve or olive, whichever one you wanted to do. It's not gonna really be a reversible top, so it's whatever you wanna do. So I liked this one as the front piece. So what I'm gonna do is I like to turn this. Let me see if I can see. We're gonna need pins for this. You're gonna need at least 4 pins. All right, so I'm gonna sit this in my lap so you guys can see what I like to do. So I'm sitting the bodice with the piece that I like the most, that I want to be in the front, up. So I'm gonna be putting the opening of the bodice facing the camera here. And so I got my skirt, right? Skirt is a full piece of, this is what a double folded skirt looks like, full circle skirt. Okay, so I'm gonna match up a piece here. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna go here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay the skirt right here. I like to put my skirt on the outside of the bodice. Okay, so I'm gonna match up the front piece here. We have 4 pins. All right, so I am gonna go ahead and pin right here. Where nose itches. And then I'm gonna go over to my next little snipped point here, which should be a side seam. And then I got the back seam here. And the last little point here. And because all we did, we added that 1/2 inch extra into the pattern when we cut the skirt circle, it should fit fairly close. Like you don't have to, you're not gonna need to stretch this at all if you did like what I showed you. And you cut a 1/2 inch above the line that is actually called for when doing a full circle skirt. So as you can see, like all you need to do now is make sure that your main piece, your main and your lining are lined up with your skirt piece. So there'll be 3 pieces. You need to make sure 3 edges. There'll be 3 edges that you need to make sure are lined up and are getting caught in your seam. Really doesn't matter where you start. I typically start from a side seam, which is going to be the side seam of the bodice, of course, because this has no seams. The skirt doesn't have any seams because of the way we did it. So I like to put it underneath. I like to get started a little bit. And once I get the needle in the actual garment, then I start trying to, maneuver my fabric, because sometimes if you pull your fabric before your needle is in it, it'll shift out from underneath your knife or your presser foot, and it'll just be really frustrating. So make sure that all of this is lined up. There's no wrinkles in the seam part here. So like pull your skirt just to make sure that every part of this is not wrinkled. Again, do not stretch. It should fit perfectly. As long as you use the instructions that I gave you. And if you do like the pattern says, it should fit perfectly, even if you do the 1/2 circle skirts and you use the correct seam allowance when sewing the skirts together to make a full circle skirt. And if you choose to do the 1/2 circle skirt sewn together, and you'll have 2 side seams, make sure if you choose to leave the peplum unhemmed that you secure those side seams so they don't come unraveled. It's really important that you do that, or they will come unraveled. So I'm just going around removing my pins and just making sure that my lining, my main piece, and my skirt are all in the seam here. And that there's no wrinkles in the fabric, and then I'm not pulling too hard because it will make a wavy waist seam. And so we're back to the point where we started. I like to just go over that. Alright, so I cut my tail, and again I'm just going to kind of unravel this just a little bit, just a smidge to the part. Alright, so you wiggle this a little bit, wiggle your thread, wiggle your seam, make sure that no threads are popping out of the knot that you tied, so we appear to be good. So now you flip it out, and there is your peplum. Peplum top, perfect, lined, super circly, super flowy. Same neckline in the front and the back because we used the front bodice instead of a front and a back bodice. Super cute. You don't have to worry about hemming it if you do it this way, because you don't have to worry about the side seams. This fabric doesn't fray. This is double brush poly from Knit Pop. We'll link that down below. I don't believe they have this anymore. And I think this is maybe Jody is the name of this print. They typically have it in a lot of colorways. So maybe on the lookout for that. But yep. This is super cute peplum, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe. We put out a new video every Tuesday. Check out our memberships. We have a video explaining how that works. And I guess that's about it. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you guys have any questions, ask below. Bye.